Okay, David, it's wonderful to talk to you. Thanks very much for coming in. Today, we're talking with David Young. This is the Kyuzo Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu podcast. A reminder before we even begin to like and subscribe. I'm told that these things are very important, that we must remind people constantly to do this because Mr. Algorithm loves us when we do that. But I honestly don't know anything about it. I'm going to have to stop making excuses about that, by the way, as well. So, look, we're here to talk to you a little bit about Jiu-Jitsu. First of all, I guess, for those who don't know your name, what would most people in Irish Jiu-Jitsu know you for?
So they know me for the guy with one leg who rocks up at tournaments and at the start of my competition career tended to lose a lot. And then finally won. So at white belt, I think I won one match. I lost like about 26, 27, 28 matches. And then in 2023, I won Europeans.
Fantastic.
And then after that, I took gold at Pan Americans, but that was because the guy didn't show up and it was a two-man bracket. And then I kind of went on a bit of a tear, but yeah, people would know me as the one-legged.
Because that's what I had to. Guy. That's what I had to. I was telling somebody that I was doing a recording today, and I said, "Oh, it's with David Young," and they went, "Who's that?" And I was like, "Is it cool to turn around and say the one-legged guy?" Because
yeah. I mean, that's what it is, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you know, it could be tricky actually because I'm not the best with names. I'll admit. You know, and so obviously people tend to, I'm easily identifiable. Mm-hmm. And then so occasionally you'll get people coming up and I was like, oh my God, like I know who this is as well, but I just can't kind of quite place them. But
they instantly know you.
But they instantly know me.
Yeah. Well, you're notorious to a degree. Famous, I think, is a better way of putting it, though.
Infamous. Right?
Yeah, infamous, maybe. But, like, it is, I think we were just talking off camera there about perspectives and about, like, how I like to, like, hear, especially for interviews like this, and I think anybody listening would be interested in the different perspectives that we come from. So, like, I thought about it, like, when I was thinking about, like, things we could talk about, and one of the things that I actually thought about just this morning as I was I've never had to get up out of bed in the morning and think about how I'm going to make my way around the house, for example, you know? And I thought that is, like, it's a huge change in perspective. And I know somebody who, they were temporarily in a wheelchair after a surgery. And they just got this whole new perspective of life, of just getting around.
Yeah.
And of the way people treat you and of how inaccessible the world is if you're not like, you know, well, if you've got two wheels or four wheels, I should say, instead of two legs. So for me, like the perspective of somebody coming to jiu-jitsu from your background, it's really interesting to me. How did you get started? What started it all off?
So it was kind of, so I'm like 56 now. And so I probably started around 47, 48. And the kind of background to it was I was just at that age where, you know, the old joke about you start going to more funerals than weddings. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't in particularly good shape. So, you know, I'm a writer, so you're behind the desk a lot of the day. So I just kind of started out with weight training. And I was kind of one of those guys that, like, I would go to the gym and kind of mess about, but didn't really know what I was doing, was a little bit even intimidated by, like, the weight area and the big guys there. So I ended up getting a personal trainer, a guy who was an Irish powerlifter, Killian Hurley, in Dublin, and I started doing weights. And then from there, I started looking at, I did a little bit of boxing. Didn't really enjoy that very much because I kind of wanted to spar, and when I was doing the boxing, it was kind of all technique. In retrospect, probably good that they didn't just throw me in a ring. You know, there's a lot of boxing gyms where that's you go in there, we'll spar, mate. And so then it was that, and then my kind of the gateway drug for me into jiu-jitsu was, like a lot of people, I would imagine around that time, was Conor McGregor.
Right, yeah.
You know, and I didn't really follow MMA. I probably had a lot of the kind of same prejudices that, you know, most regular people have about MMA, and, you know, what was it? The American politician John McCain called it human cockfighting and all that kind of stuff. And I was just in my office in Dublin one day and I saw an interview with Conor, and I kind of tend to be quite obsessive about things if I get interested in them. So I spent like 2 weeks just watching everything. Because, like, on his come up was like, it was electric.
Yeah.
And he was electric.
It was a fascinating time as well, because it was this convergence, wasn't it, of him. I think the Instagram kind of thing as well, with short videos, and the UFC suddenly hitting this momentum as well. So it was like a perfect storm around that.
Yeah,
time,
and also, Ireland was like still in the doldrums from the crash.
Yeah,
I think people needed someone. And so I was thinking, that would be like that. He's an interesting guy, and maybe there's a little bit of a book in this. And so I just randomly rocked up to what was then SPG Swords, which is now Team KF. And kind of Swords Main Street. And I remember going up the stairs, and I was just like, it was one of those things where just like, I'm just going to go in.
Right.
And I think especially for anyone watching this who's not tried jiu-jitsu or, martial arts, like I was nervous. Like my heart was like beating a little bit faster. And I remember I walked in, it was like a striking class. The first person I saw was Chris Fields.
Right.
And Chris kind of bounded over to me and, and I kind of explained my situation. And he said, yeah, just like, jump in. Mm-hmm. And then I think it was a few weeks after that, I think Tom King and Chris suggested to me, well, jiu-jitsu is going to be ideal for you because it's ground-based.
Right, yeah.
So at that point, it was just taken, just obviously I'm not allowed to compete, or it's really not safe for me to train wearing my prosthetic. Because it's kind of titanium knee, and it's more unsafe for the other person if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I'd be very good at checking a leg kick. Let's put it like that. Around the street, and I've got trousers on. By all means, come at me.
I remember a few years ago there was a guy up north. I've forgotten his name, but somebody watching will definitely remember his name. But he had a titanium bar on his leg from a motorbike accident, and there was a gentleman's agreement. If you fought him, it was like, look, there's no leg kicks here. And I was used to think, is that for him or for you?
It's probably for you, man.
It never occurred to me that it was like, I always thought, well, it's probably because he's got a bad leg. And then I was like, maybe, actually. Yeah, so you don't break your shin because this guy's got a metal bar in there.
Well, I mean, the sockets and the prosthetics, like the sockets are like Kevlar carbon fiber.
Right.
So they're essentially bulletproof. I mean, I've not tested that, but, essentially bulletproof. And then you have the knee is titanium, and then the kind of rod here is like, if the camera can see that, is metal, and then the foot is metal, and then there's a kind of rubber kind of foot-shaped covering so you don't destroy your shoes.
Jesus, yeah.
So, someone giving me a leg kick would not be the greatest idea in the world.
Clashing shins or anything. And but has anybody ever, this is a complete aside, I wonder, has anybody ever thought of like a sports-safe prosthetic for
I've actually been thinking about that recently.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that recently because I do feel like you're not quite getting the kind of full self-defense capability. I was in Spain earlier in the year, and I was training with some Dagestanis.
Oh, very nice.
Which is, I just love those guys. And they had a Dagestani kind of national wrestling champion in teaching this class in Spain that was wrestling. And so I kept the prosthetic on for that. But then as soon as you go to the ground, like it does get dodgy for your training partner.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's something worth exploring. As even in terms of covering it, I don't know how you would do it. Maybe protective foam or something.
Yes, I bet somebody out there is on the way to that. I bet somebody in the US, with the number, I suppose, of veterans and stuff, doing sport and doing jiu-jitsu as well. Yeah, and I know you've probably seen over in is it Reorg? Is it that foundation over in?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a lot of amputees there.
British guys.
The British Army guys, yeah. I'm sure somebody's, I bet somebody's got something in the works.
I'm
somewhere.
Sure, I'm sure you could cobble someone together.
Yeah.
But as it stood, when I started to train at Team KF, it was kind of take the leg off and just kind of hop onto the mat and get going. And like the first year or two, I still don't know how I got through it. Because it wasn't even really. I actually don't think the amputation or having one leg was the big issue for me. I think it was more like I was in my late 40s. I'd never done any kind of martial arts. I'd done a little bit of boxing previous to that. And it was just, it's a shock. You know, I remember the first kind of grappling class and we're doing like standing guillotine. And like guillotine chokes now, you know, someone takes your bag, they, you know, they choke you out. It's like an old day in the office, right? But then, you know, if you got a picture of my eyes, like they were out to here, because you're just not.
What the hell's happening?
Even in a kind of consensual, safe environment, that's like shocking. You know, you get that big adrenaline dump, and so the first, but those guys were great. You know, like I think what was good about Chris and Tom, and generally everyone I've dealt with in Ireland, is they don't pretend that you're not disabled.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think when I started, I was a little bit, I could be a little bit touchy about it. And if you go, I'll say to people, if you go and learn kind of martial arts or jiu-jitsu in a gym in Ireland and you're touchy about something, you'd better get over yourself.
Yeah, pretty quick. Yeah,
because, you know, very early on, they had John Kavanagh in for a seminar. And I remember this, it was very clear to me. He just kind of looked at me and went, 50% less likely to get leg locked, right? And it's just like, you just got to take it in kind of good part, you know?
Yeah.
You have to take it in good part. It was a good line, you know?
Yeah,
it was a good line.
Definitely.
So that's where I started the journey, and I probably started I think I started competing like maybe 9 months in.
Very good, yeah.
I just kind of.
Was it for the challenge, or what was the motivation behind getting on the mat in a competition setting? Because like for anybody, that's a huge leap. It's this idea. It's not just the idea, I think, of I'm going in there to fight another person. I think a lot of it is there's nowhere to hide on the mat, so it's not a team sport.
Yeah,
there's people standing around watching me. Everybody's going to be judging me, looking at it. It's a lot like standing up on stage, I think, rather than just, you know, going in. There obviously is the element of, you know, getting in there to be thrown and taken down and tapped and choked, as you said. But like, what was it for you? What was the challenge? Why?
I think it was just because that was the atmosphere of the gym.
Okay,
you know, and I, you know, it was. I kind of wanted to represent that gym and represent Chris and Tom. And just to kind of, let's give this a go, you know? And I remember like the first, was it the Dublin Open or the Irish Open, I think was the first one. So it was a fairly biggest competition, as I recall. And I remember just like the difference between rolling day to day and competing.
The intensity.
It's just, well, first of all, you're extremely nervous, you know, and that's probably only gone away in like the last year, 18 months. And I've kind of reframed that now as something else. But I was very, very nervous. And then the match starts. And I can remember thinking, this guy wants to fucking kill me here. You know, like it's not like just having a roll or like
this guy is not friendly.
This guy's trying to put me away. And I think I came off the mat and Ash Daly was there, right? And I was just saying, oh my God, like my mouth completely dried up and like my hands were like shaking, you know, at the start of the match. And what really helped me, you know, like you've got someone that's like the first woman of Irish MMA, you know, and the first ever Irish MMA champion. And she was like, oh yeah, that's like, that's what happens.
It's normal. Yeah, congratulations.
That's normal. You're about to have a fight with someone.
Yeah, it's,
you know?
This is a normal day. I always remember when I go around now and I say, look, obviously I'm in a lot of tournaments, and I could see the guy coming off after his first match, you know, with the claw hands from grips.
Oh, yeah.
And I go, I remember that. But that doesn't happen anymore. You know, it probably goes away, I think, probably after you're, unless you have a serious battle, maybe a grip fight battle. But that cramping hands, the cramping forearms that you probably got in your first maybe 3 or 4 tournaments, it disappears pretty fast and becomes, like you say, like the norm. Yeah, it's normal. This is okay. This is fine, yeah.
I really do think it helps, you know, when you speak to other people about it. I had a conversation a few years later with Fionn Davies, and I think I was doing another competition, and I'd moved to train at East Coast at that point, and she said she's still terrified.
Yeah.
And like that's the #1 female grappler in the world.
There's a famous story about I won't mention the name, but ex-world champion. and he vomits before every tournament.
I can believe it.
Every single one, even the smallest one. So he's doing the World Championships and he goes off and he vomits before he starts. He goes back to Brazil and he's competing in the local tournaments and he goes off and vomits before he starts with nerves, just pure nerves. And then gets on and wins. So like it's not.
But the buzz when you've done it.
Yeah, the post.
Buzz, even if you're lost. Even if you're lost because you've done something you're scared and intimidated by, and you've gotten through it, and that's a real high.
Yeah.
And I think there was two things that kept me going. One was that, and then the other thing, the kind of flip side of being an amputee competing, is that everyone was super nice and supportive to me.
Right, yeah.
You know, and that helps. Because like, if I was just like a regular middle-aged guy doing it, you know, your teammates might be, good for you.
Pat on the back kind of thing.
But, you know, I would get kind of, you know, a lot of people coming up to me and like, people were like super excited to see some guy with one leg.
Well, I think it's first of all, it's the novelty value, obviously. Like everybody's looking like, oh my God, you know. But the second thing is it probably... I think there's probably a degree of like shame as well for some guys sitting back and going, well, hold on a fucking second here. What's the story? How come he's doing it and I'm not?
Yeah,
is there an element of that as well? Have you ever found
I don't know. I mean, I would encourage everyone to compete at least a couple of times.
Yeah, I always tell people, look, you have to experience it. And you have to just go in and, well, like you say, win or lose. There's like one of my friends always says, get your first 50 losses out of the way first, and then you can really start to understand.
I might be able to guess who that is. I mean, it's a common thing. Barry.
Maybe, possibly.
Yeah,
I don't know, but it's just like I love the buzz of competition still. Like, you know, I'm competing 30 years now, and I'm still going to like events, and I don't get to do as many as I used to because of how busy I am. But I always say, like, it's when I don't have one on, training doesn't feel the same.
So that's a big thing, because if you are just rocking up to class, you know, twice a week, 3 times a week, twice a week in an open mat, it's a bit directionless. So for me, it was super helpful because it gave focus to my training.
Right, yeah.
And also it gives you kind of lifestyle focus, because, you know, a lot of us talk about, is jiu-jitsu being a kind of keystone habit. So you're not going to be drinking alcohol if you're training, because that's going to be a really bad idea.
You'll have a nightmare the next night.
You're going to want to go do a little bit of weights. You're going to want to keep your cardio up. You're going to want to kind of live a healthy life, and I think that kind of gets 10x'd.
Yeah,
when you compete, because you know, like most people I found, like, you know, making sure you're on weight, like that's probably one of the hardest things for me anyway.
Yeah, I think especially as you get older as well, and your body gets a little less predictable. My body was like clockwork up until I was about sort of 38, 39, and then it was like, how come I can't lose weight like I used to? And, you know, I used to be able to drop. And so for me, like, especially in my 40s, it's become kind of like a bit of a kind of understanding my body as it ages as well. And I was saying to somebody the other day, I understand aging now as kind of like, I used to think when I got to like 40 well, actually, initially I thought when I got to 35, everything would be shut down and over. And I used to think about like, it as a kind of a sudden and direct stop. You're not going to be able to do this anymore. Stop. But actually, I understand it now more as like a little bit of a shaving off of abilities as you go. So like a little bit of cardio falls away, and a little bit of mobility goes away, and a little bit, and then you have an injury, and that side of you stops. So you can't do, you know, such a thing with your elbow anymore. So I understand it more like a paring down of your abilities, and so the result is that every time I go for a competition now, I actually begin to understand what I'm capable of still. So I understand my capabilities a bit more, which helps me push it a little harder in training, or pull away a little bit harder, a little bit in training as well. So I can I get an appreciation of who I am and what I am. And I always say, like, especially if you're a younger man, you should be pushing that engine to its maximum, because it's gonna slow down. See what it's capable of.
You have that recovery.
Yeah,
at that
it's
age.
wonderful to be able to have that. I'd love it. I would love it again.
Yeah.
But look, to come back to the start, because we spoke again off camera. You were saying like the change from being, I guess, the average desk-bound guy. Would that be a fair thing to say? And you're saying like that kind of jolt of into like the world that we kind of, like, if you're watching this now, or you're listening to this now, martial arts is just another day, right? It's another night on the mats. But transition from desk to boom, the savagery of like the jiu-jitsu mat. We look out on the jiu-jitsu mat now and we think of it as a normal day, but like I guess if you watched us here training last night, we look like we're trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
And that was a big culture shock, I guess, was it?
Yeah, and I think actually I think probably the big change for me has, beyond the kind of physical change, has been mentally. Because I think this forces you to confront certain things about yourself that you may have avoided confronting before. So I could be quite touchy about my disability. Like, I was cured of that very quickly. And I probably had quite a lot of hang-ups, just about kind of physical confrontation and things like that. And so I think the real benefit of it is I'm just much more relaxed.
Right.
Because I think if you're out in the world and if a situation arises, there's a better chance, not a 100% chance, or maybe even an 80% chance, that you can handle yourself. You carry yourself a little bit differently, and then you just relax. Because any time you see, particularly men, getting angry, say you're in the car and someone cuts you up and they're losing their shit at you, nowadays I just look at that and I'm like, that's just kind of fear, isn't it? That's a fear response.
Yeah.
I always say to people, if you get into a situation kind of out there and the person you're dealing with is completely calm and they're smiling at you, turn around and walk in the opposite direction, because they know something that you don't. So it really was, I know this is kind of the jiu-jitsu cliche, but it was certainly the case for me. It was like the best therapy ever.
Right.
And also the fact that, we're very kind of cut off these days. We're on our screens all the time, and you have a community of people in your gym or in the wider jiu-jitsu community. Even traveling, you could go to a gym anywhere in the world.
It's a fantastic
network.
network.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's an international network of like friends, wherever you land in any city.
Yeah, and as long as you show up and you're not a dick. Yeah. Then you're accepted, and you have that community there as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, that is incredible. To the I guess the preponderance of like stuff written about that kind of mental and psychological change, that confrontation, is probably around youth sports. But it's really interesting to hear from you, as you said, 48 starting.
Yeah, so 47, 48.
Yeah, 47, 48, and that probably. How long have you been an amputee? So how long?
So I was. It's a little bit of a complicated story. So I was born with a congenital birth deformity of the left leg. So femur was short.
Right.
I can always get tibia and fibia confused. One of those was missing. The other one was short, club foot, and my parents elected not for me to have an amputation, which would be the normal thing.
Right.
And I think my dad's thinking was, well, maybe something will come along that they'll be able to reconstruct the leg. And then I got to 17, nothing on the horizon, and I had the amputation then. But growing up, I kind of wore a prosthetic. So what I had left of my leg fitted into prosthetic. And back in those days, it literally was like wooden legs.
Right.
It was like wooden leather steel bars down the side. And it held my leg straight.
Okay.
So I still actually have some kind of gait patterns that I'm still trying to correct from that, where I would vault a little bit to kind of clear the ground on that side, and I would swing my leg out. But I was very sporty. I just kind of got on with it, as kids do. Kids just get on with it.
It's just another thing. Yeah,
it's another thing. Yeah. So I kind of played. I played, most sports. I played rugby from my school up until I was about 13, and the kind of frustrating thing with sport, with soccer or rugby, was I actually wasn't bad, but so I could go past someone playing soccer, but then I was fucked. because they would just catch up with me and take the ball off me, right? And I remember the reason I kind of stopped doing sport was I remember I got to like 12, 13, and there was a big rugby tournament, and I played fullback, right? And there was a couple of other people in the school that played fullback, but I was like the number one pick because I had very good kind of sense of where the ball was, where it was going. I was good in the tackle. And so I kind of, being disabled, that gives you a little bit of that kind of grit.
Right, yeah.
And I remember this vividly. The teams were getting picked and I wasn't in the first team. And like even all the other kids are looking around like, what's up with that?
What's that? How come? Yeah.
And then wasn't in the second team. And then I got put in the third team. And I think what happened was they decided, we're getting to that age where rugby gets a little bit more real. Mm-hmm. And I think they decided they didn't want to see me get hurt.
Okay.
Which is the worst possible thing you can do to a child.
Yeah, yeah.
Even now with, people, okay, aren't you worried about, getting leg locked, ankle locked, and of course it's a concern, Mm-hmm. But why should that stop you? You could be in a jiu-jitsu tournament in a rugby match and get your neck broken. Yeah, there's all sorts of things that can happen.
And is it the thing as well that somebody else was protecting you as opposed to you making the decision?
And I was never party to that decision.
Yeah, and
that really kind of put me off sport. Kind of after that,
right?
So then I kind of focused on academics, which was good. Mm-hmm. That was good. I did well academically, but it was kind of a little bit of a. It was a little bit of a moment.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. I think there should be an equal right for everyone to get messed up. Like it's the main thing. For the longest time, I couldn't understand when I would go to MMA shows because I abhor violence. I mean, I've seen a few things in my life that are pretty horrific. And I have anything on the street, I've seen someone get a kick in.
It's
horrible. Just turns my stomach. It's horrible.
Same, yeah.
And then I would go to MMA shows and I would think, I just don't have the same feeling. And then I realised it's because they're choosing to be in there.
Yeah. So it's not violence anymore.
It's consensual.
There's a consensual...
And there's a framework and there's a referee and there's kind of criteria. Mm-hmm. But no one's making anyone go in that cage or jump onto that jiu-jitsu mat. And I think that's kind of that's the key difference.
It's a massive difference there, yeah. I suppose like... The thing I was trying to get a little bit there with the previous question was, you've kind of answered it a little bit, but I think I'm trying to get the sense of like... how it took, I guess like you say, it's fairly much your whole life. So you had essentially 47 years of this one mindset, and so, like you say, being quite touchy about it, and then I suppose this transformation, if it could be called that, like this suddenly, like it's like you're thrust into an area where it's like, well, I'm just interested in that kind of mindset shift, because it's pretty hard to change someone's mind, and it's pretty hard, to get over a lot of your hang-ups as well, as I well know myself. And I suppose, like I said, the bulk of what we would be talking about would be when that, in that. When you hear about somebody's perspective, and it's always like, well, I was this kid growing up, and then I got to 18 and I discovered jiu-jitsu and it changed my life. But it's much a much less hard story to get to 47, 48 and have your mindset change then. And I find that kind of interesting, like that it was a transformative thing in some ways.
Absolutely.
Would that be exaggerating, or is that?
No. I mean, I think I'm fundamentally a kind of a different person in a lot of ways than I was when I began. I think I did another interview. I think it was at Euros this year, and I was saying I'm much more relaxed, and I don't get as annoyed as easily, and I'm not as reactive to situations. And I've got an adult daughter, and she said, "What the fuck are you talking about? You insist that we call you the champ going around the house." But no, it definitely was, because I think you should do things that test you. You should do things that, again, it's a little bit cliched, but I think all the good stuff in life is on the other side of what you're scared of. I really believe that. Mm-hmm. I really believe that. And I'd had a few experiences kind of leading up to that, non-jiu-jitsu related, where I'd gone and done things where I was very much outside of my comfort zone. And I just, it's a good feeling. You know, you feel good about yourself when you take something that frightens you or intimidates you. And what do you find when you walk into a jiu-jitsu gym or an MMA gym? You find they're some of the best people in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, they really are.
Some of the toughest guys I know, I think, are also just coincidentally happen to be some of the kindest guys I know. And it's a really unusual thing. I've met more bastards in suits than I have in kimonos or in MMA gear. Yeah. And that's
absolutely.
A fact. Yeah.
And I think, especially now when we're talking about, the situation kind of with young men, community is really important for young men. Like we've kind of, we didn't... we used to have like tribal rites of passage for young men. Mm-hmm. Even something as simple as I would have every teenage boy do jiu-jitsu for one single reason that would benefit them and benefit the women in their life. And that is, what do we learn in jiu-jitsu? We learn consent and withdrawal of consent. Which amazingly, we're still having that discussion.
Yeah.
I was talking to
a few thousand years later.
So you tap. There's no, did you really mean to tap, or do you not want to keep going?
Yeah.
I've
never thought about it this way,
And also they're in a community of men who, with some notable exceptions, and we all know the names in jiu-jitsu and martial arts, who are good, upstanding, honourable members of the community. Mm-hmm. And young men need that male energy in their life.
I totally agree.
They absolutely need it. So that when you're in situations, first of all, you're not going to get drawn into situations that you shouldn't be involved in. And again, it's just that thing about when you're confident and you're not fearful, you're relaxed. And
you've got a willingness as well to express your opinion in that community as well. So we don't want to chase too far down the rabbit hole of consent, I guess, but I think a lot of times when we speak to or when you read about certain situations that young men have become involved in, it's the guy who didn't speak up and regrets it. And the opportunity, this is wrong and I feel uncomfortable and I should probably leave. Whether we're talking about consent or whether we're talking about something happening at a party or places that you're going. And if you've been in among adults and you've been able to express your opinion, I think it's much easier. And I think that's one of the great things here in any jiu-jitsu academy that I know, is that there's this brilliant mixing of men in their 50s, 40s, 30s, and then young teens, boys as well. And they can hear and they can see how these opinions are expressed.
Yeah, and we conduct ourselves like this.
Yes. This is how you behave as a man.
Yeah.
Yeah, as opposed to, what you see and what you might be reading elsewhere, and definitely what you're seeing elsewhere online as well, which is extraordinary.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have two young boys. I have a 20-year-old and I have not a young boy, he's a man, and a 16-year-old. So having seen the older guy would have been one of the people who had not quite first contact with social media, but in and around that time as a young teen. So I've seen some of the stuff that they've seen and they've been exposed to, the Andrew Tates of the world, or anything like beheadings.
Even just the amount and nature of pornography.
Oh, it's incredible.
That's available.
Yes. At the touch of a button.
It used to be like the K's catalogue. Like that was kind of as exciting. Who's been ripping pages out of this?
That's
that was exciting stuff.
Oh my God, yeah, page 3 on the sun.
That was amazing.
But now it's like,
it's just like stuff you would have had to flown to Amsterdam and go down a dark alley. It can't be healthy.
No,
it can't be healthy.
Definitely isn't. And the skewed perspective that it gives you, look at what we're given. Like my son said something to me really funny one day. Like he said it as a joke, and he was like, "When you gave me a phone first time, I bet you didn't think I was going to be looking at ISIS beheadings." Yeah. And I was like, "Hey, here's all the violence in the world. Here's all the horrible things that we've been hiding you from, and here it is, like instantly as a teenager." And we had all those like Google apps initially on the phones and all for like Google Family, it was called, so that we could see what people. But of course, they instantly knew how to get around those. And if I could do it all again, I wouldn't give him a phone now till he was like 16.
I would be the same actually. Yeah. I would be the same. I would. Yeah, I'd kind of make sure that You stay well away from it.
Oh, it's insane. It's insane stuff.
It's
I
just
think
not
there is a
healthy.
backlash now as well. Like, there is a. I think people have kind of understood that as well. There's loads of like phone-free schools, and my wife's school is like where she works. I keep saying my wife's school, and I always have to say, by the way, my wife's a teacher. She's not in school.
right. Held
Like, just in
back.
case, just hold on. My wife's not in school.
Yeah.
But they're phone free, and a lot of places are like that now. And but like to come back to where jiu-jitsu as a community, like I think you're spot on. I've never thought about the consent and the other thing about it.
It was actually my daughter that mentioned that.
Yeah,
It was my daughter that mentioned that.
It's a very
Because I think that generation, I think they've actually managed to navigate it a bit better in a way. You know? Because I think when you look at kind of online stuff, it's almost like our generation that gets pulled into this. The kind of online rage, and
I do wonder
everyone's
about that
angry all the
sometimes.
time.
Yeah.
And then what's interesting to me is, you go online and you think the world is, everyone's at each other's throat, and then you walk outside and everyone's grand.
Yeah, everybody's just about fine.
It's like there's no real issues.
I wonder, is it the same? Because I was saying, like, so my parents' generation were almost pulled in by scams of guys phoning them up and saying that their computer was broken,
Right.
and they needed them to give them their credit card instantly. And it was like, hey, what's the, and then the next generation would be like, don't be a fool. That's obviously an idiot. That's obviously a scam. But every time there's like a development in technology, there's a generation that gets left behind who's open
we're going
to
to get
the idea.
scammed by like some hologram AI on the street.
100%. Whereas like my kid at 16 looks at that and goes, AI, instantly.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a video that I would look at and go, that's
Yeah,
totally convincing. He'd be like, nah, it's AI.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, oh, right. How do you know? Well, like, they can just see it. What's that called? The uncanny valley? Is that the thing?
Uncanny Valley, where someone's face is a little bit off.
I don't quite get it, whereas he instantly gets it.
he'll be
He's
able
like
to
more
recognise it.
fine-tuned
Yeah,
into
give
it.
it a couple of years.
Yeah. Like you say, I think they've got the tools to navigate. And I think this idea of like, did you watch Adolescence? Did you watch that,
I did,
that
yes.
show? I thought it was brilliant, really, really good. But afterwards, I got really kind of irritated about the reaction to it, Again, because I'm raising one boy, but raising a teenage boy, I got kind of like I was like, the antidote to all of this is actually just being around other people. Like all of the answers all of the questions that show was raising, which were all really good. If you like, and again, it was really well made, and I thought it was fascinating. But the idea that it was kind of like, I think we've been in these moral outrages before, where it's like moral panics of, reefer madness in the 50s or
rap music or
we've done, and we kind of just get
and
on
also,
okay.
when I think back to my teenage years, like we were dicks.
Oh yeah,
Like in terms of like things you would say to girls or
totally,
getting into fights, and I don't think it's that different.
I think that what's different is that they're not. I think what's different is that a lot of those guys remain like that for longer. I think they're like held in stasis until their 20s, sometimes 30s. I know some 30s, some like early 30-year-old guys, and you look at them and you go, man, you're kind of, it's like speaking to a 15, 16-year-old socially.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that.
Yeah, because like you say, because of that isolation and because of that, like, what do they call them in Japan? They've got a name for them. The guys
the shut-ins. There's a Japanese word for it. It's basically
Hakakamuri.
Right, people that never leave.
They never leave the house. They get like take away to their bedroom, and they just sit there playing video games all day, and they work at home, and they're like in their 30s and 40s. Some of these guys. So there are those guys. Maybe they always existed and we never saw them, but they do seem to be in greater proportion. And jiu-jitsu is, I'm not saying jiu-jitsu is the answer to everything.
Oh,
but
God, it is.
Damn it is.
Really.
We all know that it is.
We all know it is the answer to everything.
We can play coy about it, but we know. But like, I like the idea of community there and behaviours and behaviours being modelled on those guys. Because again, you walk in, I'm not saying every black belt is a saint. But if you walk into like a jiu-jitsu gym, at the very least, you've seen a guy who's struggled, gone through all that. They've been through those rites of passage you were talking about. The rites of passage thing, by the way, to come back to that, when we have kids coming up through the colour belts, grey, yellow, orange, they do their blue belt when they first become like a 16-year-old. And it's like they get a foot taller. because they're in the adult world now. Okay, they might have been training with the adults, but now they've got an adult belt on, and you can actually see them kind of puff the chest, back. Shoulders back a little bit more. And I think we've kind of lost a little bit of that, societally speaking. I think
I liked. A purple belt now. I wasn't that bothered about getting my purple belt. I was very invested in getting my blue belt, and we did it old school. So at KF, you had to Ironman for it. So you were, for people that don't know, or the gym doesn't do that, you were basically out in the middle of the mats. Anyone that was going to the next colour, so white to blue, blue to purple, and you had to just roll. I was out for an hour, 15 minutes.
All right, okay.
And it was wild. And in retrospect, it's a great story because it was like Ian Gary was still there. So, like, you know, I had to roll with him. Yeah. He was actually really nice about it. He was like, he's like, have a rest, mate. We'll just make this look good. You know, and then obviously there's other white belts, or there's some people that are like, oh, he's knackered. Right. Yeah. He tapped me last week. Yeah. I'm going to get him back.
We do the same thing here. We do a 45-minute and then we do a technique after that. And the 45 minutes are both hell and the best fun you'll ever have in your life.
Yeah.
If you're whether you're testing for it or you're out there doing it, but it's a great community thing. And
it's almost like that tribal kind of rite of passage, and no one's looking at you. Like, I was done after like 15 minutes, and all they're really assessing is, can you stay out there?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's just a mental.
It's a mental thing. It's a mental fatigue thing. Yeah.
And then how much more special is it at the end of that when you get your belt?
I know. I see sometimes, you know, when guys have been presented with the belts, and you know, it's just another night on the mats. And I understand why people do it. It's like,
I do too. And I got my purple belt like that.
But I always just feel like it's something you've been doing for 2 years to get to that level. It deserves it. A night, you know, it deserves a bit of.
I'd rather have that. Like, I'm not a big fan of like the gauntlet. The belt.
We used to do that.
I just don't.
I always say, like, when we were doing that, we used to do that years ago, because again, it would just been passed down, and if that's a whipping for anybody, everybody lines up and you watch.
Yeah, you run the gauntlet, and people whip you with their belts.
But we had some guys, and they would only show up for that. Like, they'd be like, "Oh, someone's getting a whipping. Yeah, great. I'm definitely going to do that now."
It's too much like American fraternity to me.
Yeah,
I just don't. But I think going out and rolling with your teammates and having a good hard spar for 45 minutes or even half an hour,
much better, and more jiu-jitsu related, and a little less weird.
Yeah.
A whole lot less weird.
And again, it could have bonds you. You know.
Yeah, definitely. So we spoke a little bit. Irish Jiu-Jitsu guys will know you as that guy with the one leg, but you've got a far more career style job, I suppose. You're a writer, and you write under the name Sean Black right now.
I write under the name. I write thrillers under the name Sean Black. The two main series I write, probably people who read those types of books would know, would be the Ryan Locke series. Okay. And I also have another series, Byron Tybor series. The kind of story behind Sean Black will definitely appeal to Irish viewers. Okay. Because when I came to write the first book, which was in 2007, actually, to go back and give a little bit more kind of context to it. Previously, I'd written for TV in the UK, so I wrote for Brookside, Biker Grove, a couple of other shows in the UK. I did that for about 9 years, and then I got really just kind of burnt out working in TV, and sat down and wrote my first novel, and was very fortunate to sell it in 2008, just as the financial crash was about to hit.
Yes, so just being right.
I'll tell you how close it was. I had a very good agent in London that took the book out, and the way he worked was he would send it to all the major publishers in London, courier it to them on the same day, because his kind of big thing was celebrities and debut authors, and kind of trying to put them in an auction situation, so kind of hyping it up. And so, like, the book goes out on, say, the Friday, and then you're waiting, and, you know, you maybe call me on the Tuesday, oh, so-and-so, you know, Random House is reading it, they're liking it, blah, blah, blah. And then finally, the week after that, I had to fly to London, because it was like, yeah, they want to sit down, a few of the publishers want to sit down and meet you. So that was like, okay, that's a good sign.
Really nice sign there.
And so it was a strange time in my life, because, and I doubt it'll ever be repeated, but once they have a product they want, once they have a book they want, they really kind of court you. So I was having like lunch at the Ivy, breakfast at the Wolseley. Okay. I'd done TV, so I knew it wasn't because, you know, the colour of my eyes or my Scottish charm. I knew it was because they read something like, oh, we could make some money here, you know, okay, like, let's be honest, right? So we ended up selling the book for a very nice amount of money, which was great because I was skint. Like completely skint, because I'd stopped doing TV, so I hadn't worked in a year. So it was you know, it was sell the book or sell the house,
right?
And that wouldn't have gone well because we were about to hit the crash. But I can remember coming out of the hotel in Russell Square in London, and I just had the first offer, and it was the Evening Standard, and it was Lehman Brothers collapses,
right?
And so it was one of those ones where timing, you know, like literally, if the book had gone out like 3-4 months later, I doubt it would have sold.
Jesus,
I think it was the last big deal that got done on a novel before they just stopped buying.
And has the landscape changed since then as well, like with online publishing? I know that
massively.
Yeah.
Massively.
Are those deals like a thing of the past almost?
No, you still get big deals. They still get big deals. It's kind of pick what route you want to take. But the Sean Black story was, I got a phone call after we'd sold the book, right? And they'd written a pretty large check at that point. And I was actually in Pavilions and Swords, right? And I get this phone call from my editor in London. And the thing about British publishing is they're all posh, right? Like, you know, talk about diversity. The main thing is if you hear someone with like a Manchester accent or a you're like, holy shit, how did you get past that? How did you get past the gates?
The security guard was like, didn't stop you on the way.
And, so they're all super posh. They're very nice. They're lovely people, you know?
Yeah.
And she said, David, so we keep on getting confused in meetings because the head of Hachette, which is one of the main publishers, is called David Young. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if this is true or not, or this was the reason, but he said, look, how do you feel about taking a pen name? And, you know, I just wanted to keep them happy at that stage. So I said, yeah, fine. So it ended up being like this merry-go-round between her, my agent, the head of like sales and marketing in the UK. And what you'll find with thrillers in particular is most of the best sellers, their surname begins with C. So like Lee Child, Coben, Crace, Clive Cussler, Tom Clancy. The reason for that is C is broadly eye level. So it puts about 5% on your sales.
Yeah. Okay.
So we kind of discussed that. So I thought, I'm going to push these fuckers down the thing, right? So we'll go with Black. And you know, and it's the Reservoir Dogs scene. No one's allowed to be Mr. Black. So Black, thought, okay, that's cool. And I wanted Sean because Sean Connery, right? I was like, you can't get cooler than Sean Connery, man.
Okay, yeah, a bit of a Scottish connection there as well, right?
So I phoned my agent, who's no longer my agent, so I could tell this story. And he went, oh, you can't call yourself Sean. I went, why not? He went, it's too ethnic. And I went, do you mean? I went, wait a minute. And that's the other thing. Like they're all like politically correct until you scratch the surface, and then suddenly they're not at all, right? And I went, do you mean it sounds Irish? Well, you know, I don't want to say it like that. And I said, you're called Luigi. and he said, but my name's not on the book. And I went, yeah, that's a fair point. But anyway, so I stuck to my guns and we got Sean. We got Sean.
God, I wouldn't. Would that same conversation happen now? Like this?
Probably. Yeah, I don't know. It's a kind of funny world. I think it's kind of I don't know. There's a weird thing with liberals, right? There's a weird thing with liberals that was it Shane Gillis, the comedian's got that line about being racist is a bit like being hungry. Like you're not hungry now. you know. and I think it's just healthy if we all just admit we have some prejudices. The main thing is you don't act on them.
Yeah. Please,
you know,
keep them to yourself.
Yeah, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. We all have, you know, it's kind of fairly innate, isn't it? So so that was kind of the first book. But how I kind of got into that, which ties into trying jiu-jitsu, was I had done a couple of years previously. This was kind of the height of Iraq, Afghanistan. And I noticed online there was a lot of people doing bodyguard training courses, because it was the equivalent to me of going to work on the rigs.
Yeah.
So you could do one of these courses, like 6 weeks security industry authority course, and then you could just go out to Afghanistan, right, and work. Yeah. And those guys were making big money.
It was huge money at the time. So I knew quite a few lads in that. Just through jiu-jitsu and through martial arts, and I did a couple of courses around that time, not with the intention of doing that, but they were self-defense. There was a guy came over from the States one time, and he was doing an air marshals course,
right?
And he was like doing, and there was I don't know why I went to it. It was one of those things where I kind of came out of the weekend, went, what? Why did I do that? I think at the time I was just doing courses, you know, where you kind of go like, I'm going to go do this and I'm going to do that. But he was given this course, and he sat down afterwards, and he had a kind of murky past, you know. But I think he was deliberately keeping his past murky. He probably worked in a shopping mall. He probably worked in the equivalent. You know,
that's usually the deal. Guys that have done it, they'll just tell you.
They'll tell you right.
I was here.
Yeah. So this guy came out, but he wasn't particularly impressive. But he had this guy with him who said nothing, right? And I was like, I think this is the real guy. I think this guy's the real guy, you know. But he showed some stuff which was really effective. But then at the end of it, we were all sitting around talking, and I'm always trying to talk to people afterwards, you know. So like, okay, let's see what this guy's like. And I went over and I was chatting to that guy, and he was like chatting away about 9/11, post 9/11 Iraq, Afghanistan, and he's like, oh, it's a license to print money. Yeah. So you can do whatever you want, and you can just put on the end of it like anti-terrorist, and it's like you're going to sell 20 courses over in the States. Companies are looking for them. Major corporations sending them over there for bodyguard courses.
They wanted warm bodies.
Yeah.
They wanted warm bodies. So I think I might have had a few glasses of wine this night, and I signed up to this course, and because I thought this is a great TV show, and I ended up writing the pilot for the TV show, and I kind of pitched it as like Auf Wiedersehen pet with guns, right? Because when I went on the course, it's like a really serious course, and the two guys that taught it, like they were the real deal. Like they were both just come out of Royal Military Police Close Protection Unit. So they were like the real deal. But most of the guys in the course were like morons.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like genuinely, like on the gun range one day, and one of the instructors says someone's name, and he turns around with a fucking loaded Glock in his hand.
Jesus.
Right. And he's very lucky he wasn't shot. Because obviously the first rule of any firearm, most people know this, is you never point it at someone unless you intend to pull the trigger and kill them, right? So I did that course, and I kind of did the TV pilot, and I'd always had this thing when I was writing TV. I kind of always wanted to write novels, and I had a couple of agents at the time say, "Oh, it's really difficult to get like sell a novel these days." But I thought, well, if you think about it from brass tacks, from basics, to get a TV show commissioned, you're talking a couple of $1 million, right? Even to do a pilot for something like that, it's probably $500,000, even back then. For someone to publish a debut novel, they're probably going to, low end, they're going to give you 5,000-10,000. You know, it's maybe going to cost another 10 on top to get everything printed, you know, publicity, market. So it can't possibly be as difficult, right?
Yeah.
And I think what he was saying was they tend to not like screenwriters. Screenwriters can't write novels. That's kind of the idea. So I thought, well, I couldn't get the pilot away, and I thought, well, I'll write a novel, but I'll write a serious thriller. So the way I did that for anyone thinking of pursuing this is I hadn't been reading that much. I'd read a lot when I was a kid and like in my early 20s, but I'd kind of stopped because I was just reading so many scripts all the time. And I went out and I bought like 20 thrillers, just like who's selling. And I just sat down for like 2-3 months and just ripped through them all. And okay, I've got a feeling for how this is structured. And because I'd written TV, I would just kind of write the chapter as a scene. broadly.
Right.
You know, so, and I was used to, the good thing about writing for TV was you just have to produce. You know, it's like being a journalist. So on certain shows, you would even get a call on a Friday and it was like, you know, someone's made a mess of this script, whatever it was. Can you get us a new draft by Monday? Which I loved because you got the same money.
Right.
So you basically get $6,000 for not having a weekend.
Right, yeah.
You know, so I was like, yeah, sure.
I'll do
and
that,
also because they're close to filming at that point, as long as it's broadly okay, it might not even be as good as the original, that they replaced, but they have to shoot something. So they're delighted. So you have to have that thing of like, you just have to kind of get it done.
On time, on demand.
So you're doing an episode a month or every 2 months, and then you've got a script that you're maybe doing the second draft on, and you just have to kind of get through it, right? So I had that. So I sat down for about a year and wrote this novel. And the agent I ended up with, he'd sold a novel by a guy that was a cop in Cumbria. Because if you're aware of, like, if you've seen Jack Reacher, the show on Amazon Prime, so those books, Lee Child's books, make a ton of money.
I can imagine.
Tens of millions.
I don't know any bloke who hasn't read one of those.
Yeah, they're in every airport. So all the publishers were looking for the next Jack Reacher. So my agent at the time, Luigi, he'd sold this guy from Cumbria, and he got like, I didn't get anything close to this. I did very well, but he sold like 6 books for like £850,000, and the US tops, the US rights for like a couple $100,000. So I kind of went. The way you do it is you finish the book, or as close to finish the book. You kind of write an email, and then you give them the first 2-3 chapters, and then you just wait. And with him, I'd already kind of had a couple of agents like offer to represent it, and this guy's a very good salesman, right? And so he just got on the phone. He's like, "I'm not getting off the phone with you until you agree that I'll represent this book."
Okay.
And I was like, "That's good. I like that."
All right.
Right. So I used the kind of real life stuff from the bodyguard training course. In terms of just like how they assess the world. And, you know, we did firearms, we did, if you ever get a chance to do one of these things, just go do it.
I've done similar. I've never done I've done firearms stuff elsewhere, but I've never done it as part of a course. As a
Did you do driving?
I did a bit of driving, but it wasn't very high level. It was just essentially bubble drive. Do you know what's called? Yeah, safety bubble drive and stuff like that. I didn't do too much more. No.
So we did three days on like a disused airfield. It was near like Rhyl in Wales, which anyone from Rhyl listening. But it's like the whole town's that cantina in Star Wars from what I could see. Anyway, so we did this airfield, and they had a load of cars that were about to get scrapped, and we just basically crashed them.
Oh, nice.
So you're doing J-turns, you're doing have you ever seen the movies where they spin people's car off the road?
Yeah.
So what you do there, you can try this in the M50.
Oh, yeah.
Cuts you up.
It's nudge, there's that thing that nudges the rear fender.
Yeah, so you get the front of your front wheels lined up parallel to their rear wheels, and you spin as hard as you can. And they spin off, but you keep going in a straight line.
Okay.
So we just did that, and it's just like amazing.
Holy shit,
that'd
be great fun.
That'd be Top Gear.
Incredible fun.
It's good fun. It's good fun. So anyway,
it's going to Google these courses right now.
It's good.
I've got a weekend away from myself there.
So you do that, and then I wrote the kind of first kind of book, and I kind of threw everything into it, and we took it out, and we ended up selling it. So that was the research, and then the second book was set in a prison in California called Pelican Bay, which it was the first purpose-built supermax prison.
Okay.
So it was built as the modern Alcatraz.
Right.
So it's basically
supermax is like high danger criminals. Yeah.
So it's 3,500 inmates, 80% of whom were serving life without possibility of parole.
Oh.
And then even within Pelican Bay, they have a separate unit called the secure housing unit. So that would be where all the major gang leaders in California are kept in that unit. They've actually released them all now because they sued. They took it to the Supreme Court and won. Because some of them, so they're basically it's single cells, right? They don't see anyone.
Okay.
You don't see anyone. You might occasionally see a guard. And they're kept inside 23 hours out of 24 indefinitely.
Yeah, we have something like that here as well. There is that, but it's for it's essentially for your own safety in inverted commas.
Right. That's different. That's different. I mean, that happens. They have different prisons for those people.
Yeah,
in
but
California.
this was an intentional unit just built for that purpose.
So it'd be paedophiles or...
No,
not necessarily.
So they
giving evidence against people?
A little bit of that, but essentially, I think it's used. I'm going to really speak out of turn here now. I have no definite. This is a podcast. We can come up with our bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to provide no proof whatsoever of this.
Yeah.
So, like, there'll be a couple of guys like gangsters and stuff like that here, killed there, essentially for, in inverted commas, their own safety, but it essentially is a punishment. It's like,
the guys in Pelican Bay, they're there for everyone else's safety.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So basically in the kind of California prison system, the first thing to know about it is it's completely, once you get above like level 2, there's 4 levels. So once you get to level 3 and certainly at level 4, it's segregated by race.
Oof.
Not by the prison authorities, but it's just understood, and it's just an easier way to kind of deal with issues that might come up. Mm-hmm. So everyone has their area on the yard. And then there's prison gangs that kind of oversee those prison populations.
Right.
So the white inmates, the kind of top gang for the white inmates is the Aryan Brotherhood. And they are in California, and they are also in the federal prison system. And then you have the Hispanic inmates are split between Norteños and Serreños, kind of overseen. I believe the Serreños is Mexican Mafia, La M. And then Norteños is basically Northern Family. So, and that refers to Southern California and Northern California.
Okay.
So they're kind of slightly at odds. Then you have the African American inmates, that's Black Guerrilla Family. So there's a couple of things. If you were sent to like a level 3 or a level 4, you just can't associate with someone of another race, But equally, so say for instance, one of the African American inmates has a problem with a white inmate. They're not allowed to put their hands on that white inmate. So they would have to go to whoever was the shot caller on that block and say, look, so we've had a problem with so-and-so, and then they'll check them. Check them means beat the shit living fucking shit out of them. Yeah. And then the other thing is, when you go into those facilities, they check your paperwork. And what that means is they want to know what charges you have. So if you have anything related to endangerment of children, even not necessarily sexual, that's it. The green light is then on you. And so what happens with younger inmates coming in if they decide to go... And also you have no, like, if you or I went in, you're part of what they call the woodpile, the white inmates. So you're going to eat with the white inmates, you're going to exercise with the white inmates, you can't step on, even if you step over onto another race's part of the yard, it's immediately on.
Right, okay.
Because there's no reason you would do that.
Right. Other than to agitate.
Other than if you were about to do something. So when they check the paperwork, if anything shows up, then what can happen to some of the younger inmates is, so say you go into a cell or you get a new cellmate, and they'll run the paperwork, and they have ways of checking what someone's in for, and they'll come to you and they say, oh yeah, your cellie, like he's a child molester, and then they'll just hand you a weapon. And it's like either you kill him, or you're dead.
Yeah, we'll take care of you.
So they call it yard removal. So the person has to be removed from the yard. So they police themselves in that way. But within the secure housing unit, as it was then, you had most of the leadership of the Aryan Brotherhood, Mexican Mafia, Nuestra Familia, Northern Family, Black Guerrilla Family. And they would run their businesses on the outside from secure housing unit, and they had a lot of ways of communicating with people on the outside. So for instance, the Aryan Brotherhood realised when they had visits that they were videoed but there was no audio. So they all taught themselves American Sign Language. So they'd be having one, and even when they're like ordering a hit on someone, I don't sign, but they'll, someone will be up on the top and they'll be looking down and they'll be signing, like that guy.
Jesus.
Well, and actually one of the other rules was
adaptation
to
your environment.
One of the other rules was you don't, under any circumstance, as a prisoner, you never point at someone.
Right.
You never point at someone.
And you went in to this.
So I went in for like a day. I was in there for like 6 hours. And it was before you go in. So there's a couple of things before you go in. You have to sign what they call the no hostages policy. So you basically, it's kind of extended version of a jiu-jitsu disclaimer. And it basically says, if you understand that if you're taken hostage, we will not negotiate for your release under any circumstances. So that's like,
okay,
that's that.
Right.
And then the other thing is they said to me, don't wear the colour blue. And at first I thought that was a gang thing, but they said no. So like, there's a chance you're going to be on the yard when the inmates are on the yard, and and they wear blue, so we need to be able to see you because they have like kind of mini 13s or whatever rifles in the tower, and so they get one warning shot if it kicks off, and then they just start taking people out.
Fucking hell!
So it should kill. After that one warning shot, and they just actually had. It was fairly calm when I went in because they just actually had a fairly significant riot.
Right, they'd had a bloodletting. So yeah.
And that was and talking about the racial part of it. That was a really weird one. That was like a outlier incident. They had a young inmate come in who was white, but he'd grown up in an African American neighborhood in LA, so he was a Crip. And so they get him in, and everyone understands that you have associations, and they have no problem. Like, you could be a white inmate and your wife is Hispanic.
Right.
It's not an issue.
Right.
Or you have friends outside that are different races. Not an issue. Everyone gets it, right? So it's not even, it's a racial thing, but it's not a racial thing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think like when you're talking about it there, it's more, it's sort of this chaotic environment that they've ordered.
Yes,
they've created
they've brought order to it.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It's the only way it can. It's the only way it can run. So this guy came in and they pulled him on the side and they said, "Look, like we know you're a Crip because they look at all the tattoos and they identify all the gang stuff." And they said, "Look, you cannot associate with the black inmates on the yard at Pelican Bay. Like that will end badly for you." And he's like, "No, I'll be fine." And so what happened was the Aryan Brotherhood designated two. They call them torpedoes or hitters. And they show me the footage, and it's just these two guys walking next to them. I'm like, hey, Barry, how you doing, man? Hey, everything, blah, blah. And it's just like super friendly, and then just bang.
Oh, Jesus.
And just like stabbing them up. And then all the black inmates jumped in. Yeah. So there was a moment of like really weird confusion on the tape where you can see the black inmates like,
what do I do here?
There's a white guy, but he's one of ours. And the other rule is you have to jump. You have to jump for your race. So if you don't, you have to, it doesn't matter if you can fight or not, like no one cares about that, but you have to, if you're a white inmate and a white inmate gets into it, you have to fight.
Doesn't that remind you of growing up a little bit? It reminds me of being a teenager. It's like
some of it,
a younger teen, especially like 12, 13, where it was like, if your friend was, you have to, there's no, you've got no option.
I managed to avoid most of that, I have to tell you.
Yeah.
But,
I did as well, to be honest. I skirted the edges of it successfully. And then by the time I was kind of in my mid to late teens, I had a much calmer group of friends. But early doors, I think, probably, 12, 13, 14, it was a bit shit like that way. That tribal thing. With the way you're describing it, I mean, it's not, obviously even remote, but I think probably most blokes who went to like an all boys school in particular will probably go, there was an element of that, particularly in the early years, I think in the 80s and 90s especially.
Oh yeah, I mean my school wasn't all boys, it was mixed, but it was a comprehensive. And I mean it was bad.
But it reminds you that the way suddenly like those lines, like I mean it's obviously an extreme example of where the lines are drawn, but like we all.
But you know what I think about it? I think the difference between those people and the rest of us, and in the course, I've written a fair amount of, even when I was doing TV, I wrote a fair amount of like kind of crime gangster related stuff. And again, when you meet some of those people, it's weird because you're just like, wait, you did what?
Yeah.
Because some of them are like really nice.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And I think the difference is they could like stab someone and then go have their dinner.
Yeah.
You know, and just not like think about it. Whereas most of us would just be in bits,
Yeah.
you know, mentally. And I think they could compartmentalize it.
I don't know. Yeah, and is that psychopathy or sociopathy, whatever you want to call it, like, or is it just that they become inured to that? Like,
I think it's. I think there's probably, obviously there's some that are just psychopaths, right?
Yeah.
But I think like years ago when I was a kid, I met Jimmy Boyle, who was at the time Scotland's most dangerous man. So they actually tried to. He was a kind of Glasgow gangster, pal of the Craze. Was serving like life, and they were actually trying to introduce the death penalty retrospectively just for him.
for him, right? Okay.
Because he got into so much. I don't think this is true, but the rumour was he'd like crucified someone that owed him money, like he'd nailed them on a wooden floor. It was all these kind of stories, right? And then he gets sent to a place in Glasgow called the Special Unit, where they used art therapy, and ended up rehabilitating. And then I think he lives in Morocco now. He's like an artist.
Okay. Yeah.
He's like an artist. And I remember meeting him as a kid, and he made a huge impression on me because he was so gentle.
Right. Yeah.
And even just the way he moved, he almost moved like a martial artist because he was kind of just like super chilled, relaxed.
Maybe
very
maybe that's a man with no fear. Maybe that's what that is. That's a man. We were talking about the fear element earlier. It's like,
but I think
no one's gonna touch me,
also he just kind of like, you talk to him now and he's like, you know, I've seen recent interviews with him, and he said how he got status was by being violent.
Right.
And then when he moved into a different world, that was like abhorrent to people as it is to him. And then he's like, oh, wait a minute. Like, this is not
I don't need to, I don't need to do this.
I can do art, or I can write books, or I can do this, and that's how I can achieve status. So I think there was, you know, and a lot of these guys, like in the Secure Housing Unit, they run their businesses from there. They run like, you know, multi-million-dollar drug empires. And they're very bright people. The people at the top, and a lot of them, if you see them, they're not big jack guys, you know?
Right.
Like I think with the bodyguard training course and with the experience of going in that prison, what you find is ultimately people defer to people who have something up here.
Right.
You know?
So the violent guys, the extremely violent guys, are useful in a pinch.
Yes.
But ultimately,
you need strategy, don't you?
Leadership is a bit different.
You need strategy.
Yeah.
It's like, So people, so that was the research for the second book, and then the third book was set in the adult film industry.
Oh, right.
And
I don't want to hear what you, but this is a family show.
I was either no research or a lifetime of research. I think I read a couple of books about that, you know.
Yeah. I was like, I think I could use, let's let my imagination do the talking here.
I think actually the book I read for that, which was really interesting, really good book, it was Neil Strauss, who wrote The Game about pickup artists.
Oh, yeah.
And
I knew that name.
He wrote Jenna Jameson's biography.
Right.
Like How to Be a Porn Star or something like that.
Yeah.
And that was that gave me enough insight into that world.
Yeah.
That, you know, that was kind of book number 3. And then book number 4 was the only time I looked at doing the research, and I was like, no. And that was a book called The Devil's Bounty. And that was set in Mexico. And Juarez, where there was a lot of killings, you know, and it was the height of like the cartel violence. And I did actually look at going down to Juarez, and I was like, no.
Do you know what? Maybe not. Maybe not.
No, because they were killing journalists, and you know, trying to explain the difference between someone that writes novels and a journalist.
Yeah, it's not. I'm here. I'm more interested in you than interested in reporting about you.
That's where I was like, no, that would like I could potentially get myself in, and also it's not like you're just going to get. Not there's any good way of getting killed.
Yeah,
but it's going to be.
It's pretty
rough.
savage. Yeah. I'm just finished reading. I've forgotten the guy. Don Winslow, was it? The Power of the Dog.
Yeah. Oh my God, my favorite author.
Yeah. So someone introduced me to him and said you got to read him because I can't remember who I was reading, and I was like, oh, I'm looking for something.
He's amazing.
Don Winslow. I just read Power of the Dog, and I was from minute 1. I was going, Jesus. This is like...
He didn't go down there either.
Did he not?
No. That made me feel better when I found out about it.
All right. Because I come from the way that he writes, it was almost like it was from personal experience.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of, it was a real, I thought, is this guy, I'd like to know a little bit more about him. For anybody who doesn't know, it's about like Mexican drug cartel, right from the 70s.
Yeah, how
right
the cartel started.
Yeah. Oh, it's an incredible book. It's unbelievable. I know it's quasi-fictional. I know there is a lot of truth in there, but as reading it was like reading.
I don't know if he's the GOAT, but he's certainly up there for me.
Yeah.
You know, like if you were thinking, should I get one of Sean Black's books? Or should I get one? Get Winslow. Read Winslow, then come back to me.
And then come back quickly.
And then set your expectations a little bit lower.
But don't forget to spend the Sean Black money, though. Don't forget to do that. Yeah, get them from your legitimate source.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did think about when I was reading that, like, I was going, like, I wonder how much went into this, like, in terms of research.
A lot of research. I mean, I think he knows a lot of people down there. You know, he knows a lot of people down there, and his books are very well researched. The interesting thing about that is you have writers that don't really. It's a confidence thing for me. I have to have the research in order to like feel confident enough to write it. There's some authors like Lee Child who does Reacher, and he'll just make stuff up.
Right.
Completely make it up, right?
Yeah.
But he just says it in such a definite way that you just buy it.
Well, I suppose, you're suspending your disbelief, I suppose, in that way.
The only thing that can get you in trouble with America, if any time when you write about guns, Jesus, the emails you get from Americans. It's actually not like a 9mm. That's only available in .223.
Like, the comic book guy out of The Simpsons, is it like that? You know,
it's the one thing they'll dig you up
you've
on.
Got guns wrong. Oh, no, you can get anything else you want, but you got a gun wrong. No, sorry, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah. So that's the only thing. So in terms of the jiu-jitsu, that was kind of that was kind of part of it, was seeing, because I'm always fascinated as to what actually works. Like in a real fight, or a fight where like hand to hand. Oh, that's the other thing in Pelican Bay. I'm actually working on a new series, which will be out like 2027. And the first book in that series is called The Iron Yards. And that comes from the fact that on level 4s, you're not allowed to fight with your fists.
Okay.
You have to use a weapon.
Right.
So you can only use iron. You have to use a weapon. It's not acceptable to give someone a kick in. You have to stab them.
Right. That's the extreme end of
that's the extreme end. And they'll provide, weapons.
That's nice of them.
Which is nice, yeah. It's like rental.
Oh, you don't have to bring your own.
It's like Uber, but for weapons.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah.
But yeah, so there's, and I was just, I'm returning to that kind of world, just because I was like, it's just such a rich world.
Yeah.
And the whole history of how the gangs, especially the Aryan Brotherhood is they started in the 1970s in San Quentin, when obviously there was a lot of racial tension in the United States. There was a lot of political, social upheaval, and ostensibly they would say they were there to protect the white inmates, and then it became really about the drug trade. And
is it because it's such an unknown world to us that it's so fascinating? I remember reading something about wrote Twin Peaks. Jesus Christ, give me the name.
David Lynch.
David Lynch, of course, yeah. And the FBI, when he was talking about, at the time, the FBI, when he's writing Twin Peaks, it's like the FBI are like this mystery organization. Nobody knows what to do. So he just made stuff up that they did. Like, this is a procedure that we have in the FBI.
Well, he didn't have Google then.
Yeah, so he's like, you couldn't really test them on it. And the genius of it is that everybody wanted to see inside this kind of world of the FBI. So, everybody was like really interested in that. And he could just he could just essentially do anything.
I just love that stuff. Yeah. I love anything about that. I was watching a podcast recently about a guy who was like one of the senior people in the CIA who ended up going to prison for like 2 years because he exposed what they were doing in terms of torture in Abu Ghraib and things like that. And he mentioned this thing. I was like, wait, what? He's like, there's a lot of Mormons in the CIA. It's mostly Mormon. Right?
Really?
And it's because you're not going to be able to blackmail them because they don't take drugs, they don't cheat on their partners, like they're straight-laced. You're not going to get them drunk. It would
explain a lot of the suits as well.
Yeah. And they're like really, and also they're used to basically doing a CIA job, and they have another language because they get sent all over the world on their missions. And so they'll learn like the most obscure languages. and they're just like straight arrows, and they're very personable and nice, which is what you need for a spy.
Yeah,
You need someone that people are gonna, when they're trying to create intelligence assets, it's all about befriending someone and getting them on side, and then all of a sudden, could you do this for me?
I'm always so disappointed, when you hear and you see an interview with an actual spy, and you're like, actually, he kind of looks like an accountant. I really wanted him to be more James Bond. What's going on? It's like, this exposed spy, and then you see a photo of him and you go, him? Really? Oh, come on.
He said there's there's two kinds. Like, there's guys like him who's like that, and then there's just like the stone cold. And he said actually 9/11 kind of changed it, because then they basically got people in that were killers.
Right.
They were just sent out, right, go kill these people.
Your job is to do this, and this.
And so he said
do the dirty work.
It kind of changed at that point.
Yeah, crazy. But I suppose like researching a book, it must be like this great excuse, like we were talking about deadlines as well. It must be this great excuse to go explore something that you're really interested
it's brilliant,
in as well.
because no one wants to sit in a room and write a book, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's horrible. But if you say it's research, and you go, I'm just going to go off bodyguard training for a month and crash cars and
bye,
shoot guns. It's research.
It's research. Yeah, anything can be justified in the name of research. Yeah. By the way, this next one's about an alcoholic. This is what I'm going to have to do about that. It's a good thing you didn't do the porn industry one. I think the research for that would have been. I
think that would be really. That would be really tedious.
Everything I've read about, what's that woman who slept with?
Oh, Bonnie Blue.
Bonnie Blue. Anything I read about it, I was like, that just sounds horrible.
I mean, I've spent...
there's nothing glamorous. There's no glamour. There's no nice...
No.
And
even like putting the adult industry at one side, if you spend any time on a film set, which I have, unless you're actually doing a job, especially if you're like directing or something, it's really boring.
Yeah, a lot of waiting around and doing nothing.
I was on the set of... this always blows people's mind. And I was briefly in, like, top of frame for like 2 seconds. I was in Malcolm X.
Oh, really?
Denzel Washington. So I was living in New York and at film school, and the guy that was teaching directing class, he was Spike Lee's editor. And so you go on that set, and you're just basically standing around for 10 hours, and then they'll come in and they'll shoot for like 5 minutes, and then Denzel goes out, and then they're switching the lights, the cameras, and you're there for like an hour, and they'll come out 3 minutes. And it's just, there's nothing interesting about it.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine, like, an adult movie set. Jeez. It's just like, it's not sexy, I would imagine.
I can't imagine it being. Even the way that, because I listened to an interview with her about it, the part of it, because I think it was she had a documentary out, I think on Netflix.
Yeah, I watched that. It was Channel 4.
Oh, Channel 4. I didn't. So I just watched like maybe 5 minutes, and even the manner in which she was discussing it, I was like, this actually is like, this is horrible. Like, there's nothing that sounds exciting or thrilling or anything like this. This is like really...
It's business, isn't it?
This is the... Yeah, it's
She's
business.
She's a brilliant businesswoman.
Yeah.
She's making like a ton of cash.
Yeah.
So in one sense, okay, fine, good for her.
Yeah. But research for that book would be...
I don't think I would have gotten away with that with the wife. I don't think she has a line. Like, she's great. So when I was like, I'm going to start doing martial arts or jiu-jitsu, like, she was well used to me doing, like, oh, God, he's off on one again. And that's how some of the books have come about. Like, I'll get really into someone and I'll bore the arse off her. Like, hey, I just watched this. It's just like, can you just go write a book about that?
Rather than
talking to me.
Troubling me with it.
Like, I have no interest in this.
I'm going to give that hint to my wife. Just make me write a book or something, and then you won't have to listen to it.
It gets out of your system.
Yeah, get it out of my system completely. Like, yeah. Well, listen, we've kind of come to the end. Unfortunately, because we could talk another while, I think, which is a shame. So, what's next for you? You're currently working on another series, and you're.
So yes, I just had a book come out. So we do the plug under the Ryan Locke series called The Yacht Girl. That was just out like last week. It's doing really well, so that's nice. It came out in, English, French, German, Dutch, Spanish, and then Italian to come. So that's good. And then I've got a couple more books to write, and then I'll be doing the kind of the Iron Yards, which is about a guy who goes into prison. He's innocent he's wrongly convicted, joins the Aryan Brotherhood, and then the book picks up when he's exonerated and he comes out. So he's stuck between that loyalty to the Aryan Brotherhood, to the AB, and wanting to keep his nose clean so he doesn't go back. So
very nice. Will we see some jiu-jitsu in those books?
Oh, most certainly.
Oh, excellent.
Absolutely, most certainly. Yeah.
Because that way, that's No, that's definitely what the public want. We want more jiu-jitsu, goddammit.
I mean,
More jiu-jitsu.
on that, like, the nickname I've given him is Choke. Because that's how he does. That's how he deals with people.
All right. Okay.
Just put him asleep.
You know, it's interesting the amount of times that you watch now a movie, and I'm probably like the gun guy. That you come across. I'm probably like one of those guys. When you watch it, do you know what really annoyed me? I'm going to say this now. This is completely off kilter. The first of the Daniel Craig Bond's Casino Royale.
Yeah.
So he triangles a guy at the bottom of the stairs. You know, they fall down. He fights in a hotel. He triangles a guy, and of course I'm sitting there in the movie going, "He's cool jiu-jitsu," because at that stage it was pretty rare to see jiu-jitsu in a movie. And then he gets up like he's killed him, and he's walks away. And I'm like pucking my wife beside me. Hey, listen, he's just going to get up in like 5 seconds. He needs to finish this guy off. He's just out. He's just out. Someone's going to lift his leg, shake him a bit, and he's got to get up and he's going to run away. What is he doing? James, don't you know?
He's going to grab James Bond's ankle any second.
I'm like, no. So yeah, at least we'll know as a purple belt you'll have a very strong background in martial arts. Anyway,
one for the jiu-jitsu.
Nobody will be able to question that. Well, listen, David, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you so much
it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm delighted with that. And listen, best of luck with the jiu-jitsu journey.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll see you on the mat really soon.
Yeah, great.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, man.